We are live. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, I'd like to call together the Finance Committee meeting. Sorry, Bonnie, I was trying to take over your meeting. It is Tuesday, July 21st, 1:06 p.m. and we are here on the Zoom platform. Present, we have a whole slew of folks, but I will try to call them out for the record. From the Finance Committee, we have Bonnie Katz, Adam Yoder, and myself, Liz Mealy, as the chair. I know that I heard Randy Allison back there in the cheap seat somewhere, and I don't see any indication that anybody else from City Council is here. It looks like I have Mary Rusinski, Janice Frank, Nicholas Grimes, Chris Cooley, Joe Pavlock, Stephanie Young, Mark Killian from the administration, and Mark Winkleman as a distinguished special guest. We are also expecting Sid First from Penn Strategies and Mayor Derek Slaughter here at some point shortly.
You're muted. If you're talking, Liz, you're muted.
Yeah, how did I do that? That's awkward. Sorry. We're going to begin with item number 4, a resolution to approve submission of a CLG education scholarship app for Forum 2020 at home.
Okay, the other resolution actually should come first. On my finance agenda, I have item number 2.
Perhaps I just missed that. Hang on one sec, Stephanie. Sorry.
It's a resolution to approve a certified local government contract.
Yeah, that was okay. Yep. Yes. Sorry, I didn't see your name. I missed your name on that one. I apologize. Resolution to approve a state historic preservation office CLG contract between the city and the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission. That's item number 3. You want to do that one first, Stephanie?
Yes, yeah. The two are related, but this one should go first. So
okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so the city is a certified local government, or a CLG. That makes us eligible to apply for grants and scholarships for projects and training programs that are related to historic preservation. The State Historic Preservation Office is requesting that all CLGs execute a master contract that will help to streamline the process for any future grant awards that the city receives. Execution of the master contract is also a requirement for the next resolution, which allows the city to apply for scholarship training funds. The master contract extends through December 31, 2024. The contract was reviewed by the city solicitor, and we have Mary Rusinski on the line that can answer any questions about the CLG process or other contracts that might come our way in the future.
Okay. Mary, do you have anything to add? And Mary, you're muted currently, I believe.
Okay, there we go. Just that the terms in this master contract are very similar to the individual terms that would go into a contract for individual applications for CLG money. So it's supposed to save some time.
All right. And especially in your office, I think we like the idea of saving time and paperwork, right?
And paper. Trees, yeah.
Exactly. Adam, Bonnie, do you have any questions on this item?
No, I don't.
No. I don't have anything in particular. I'm assuming that the master contract doesn't preclude potentially accepting certain elements, removing certain elements of the contract for certain agreements or anything, Mary, correct? That is just
no, it's a standard item. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then I don't really have anything further either. I'd take a motion.
Make a motion that we pass it on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on. Yes. Oh, okay. Nobody had something. Moving on to item number 4, a resolution to approve submission of a CLG education scholarship app for Forum 2020 at home. Stephanie?
Yes, this resolution allows us to submit a certified local government scholarship application to the State Historic Preservation Office for the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions Forum, a series of over 20 live educational sessions on a variety of preservation topics. As a CLG, HARB members are required to have at least 4 hours of training per year. Participation in this forum will meet the 2020 training requirements. The scholarship offer is also open to code staff, planning commission members, and elected officials. The registration cost is $100 per person, and the city is responsible for registering and paying for the individual attendees. The SPO scholarship funds will then reimburse the city for the full cost of the registration. And upon approval of this resolution, the scholarship request form will be submitted to SPO.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Questions, Bonnie or Adam?
So we're reimbursed. If anybody on city council would like to attend, it's $100 per person, but we would be reimbursed.
That's correct.
Potentially, Stephanie, or definitely if we submit this? That is to say, is submitting this enough to guarantee us a scholarship, or?
I think SPO has to approve it before the registration can be complete. Mary, is that correct?
Yes, we have to submit the request. I was in contact with SPO and they sort of said, hurry up, but it should be okay. And what I'll do is if they reject the scholarship, I'll definitely say something that, you know, maybe everybody can't attend, that's all.
Got it. Because yeah, I
It is so.
would also potentially be interested in attending some of these. But you know, so have we reached out to all the people who are potentially eligible to attend them for free? I'm assuming codes, etc.
Well, I've notified the codes office. I did ask a notice to be sent to city council. If anybody is interested, just let me know by Thursday night. So, because I'm going to send the paperwork Friday morning.
Got it. Yeah, I would say this is certainly something that I'd be interested in, Mary. Bonnie, it sounded like there was some that you were interested in as well.
The same here, so we can understand more thoroughly when these things come to council for a vote of what is, to me, more education. I don't see dates on here as far as, I see where the terms of the agreement begins, but are there dates for this?
It's August 3rd.
The training starts, I believe it's August the 3rd. I don't have the printout in front of me, but it's very soon. And it's 5 days, and it has various sessions that are offered at various times. So if you can't make this time, you can pick it up at another time.
Okay.
I'm seeing in the memo, it's August 3rd through the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah. It would be great. Well, we don't happen to have any more information on the variety of preservation topics, do we, Mary?
I can send you the link, and you can get an agenda.
That would be awesome. I'm just curious because, if the topics were germane, it might be wise for the administration to require some people within the administration, to have some codes officials and things like that in attendance, and required training. But it really all depends on what the material is. Either way, I'd appreciate being able to see a bit more information, Mary.
I'll send a link out to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Are there any further questions? I apologize, Bonnie. I kind of jumped in on your turn.
No.
Okay.
None for me.
All right. Well, thanks for looking into this, Mary. I mean, it's a small chunk of change, but it's helpful. A lot easier to feel good about sending people to a training when it can be paid for. I will work to convince the members of HARB that I know to be sure that they participate and really take full advantage of this opportunity. It's not often that the material comes to you on your computer instead of you having to go to it. So it's kind of an advantage of this bizarre situation we find ourselves in right now.
This would be so easy to participate in at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it just, right. There are a handful of things about this strange COVID-19 event that are making life a little easy, and this is one of those things. So, um, can I get a motion if nobody has any further questions?
I'll make a motion to forward this on to the full body of the council with a positive recommendation.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay, thanks very much, folks. Mary and Stephanie, thank you for attending. And Stephanie, Mary, did one of you, Mary?
I think you're echoing.
Maybe she didn't intend to be on at all. Okay. The next item on the agenda then is item number 5, a resolution to approve a DOJ coronavirus relief for the city of Williamsport. Chief Killian?
Okay, good afternoon, members of Finance Committee. Did you get the email that I forwarded here? Just a few-
Yes. It's arrived for me. I can't vouch for everybody else, but
Okay. Mr. Yoder, did you receive it?
No, I did not.
Okay. I can attempt to forward it here again, but basically the resolution before you is to accept the grant award in the amount of $33,425 for COVID-19 relief funding through the Department of Justice Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program. We received this funding, which is good for the next 2 years for any PPE needed across the city for public safety personnel and additional city folks for personal protective equipment, and it will also reimburse us for any overtime directly related to response to the coronavirus. So we do have some funds that have been expended so far since March to deal with COVID, specifically PPE and overtime related, that this will cover, and then it'll also give us a little money in the bank to deal with any potential issues that continue to arise down the road.
how are we documenting that, Chief Killian? I had to say like this overtime specifically accrued because of COVID-19. What does that look like?
Yeah, so honestly, the fire department is the only department that has documented overtime specifically associated with COVID. And that is for the staffing of our decon facility up in at the firehouse, the closed firehouse up in the west end of the city. Initially, upon as the virus was ramping up, we established a decon facility up there for basically countywide fire, police, and EMS responders who were exposed, on an incident. They could come there and be decontaminated. So we increased, just bumped our staffing up to 1 additional during the day. So we had somebody to staff that facility, and that was only for about a month. And it was only about 6 overtime shifts. So our overtime expenses at this point are very minimal. Specifically the PPE expenses, however, masks, gloves, sanitizer, N95 masks, those are expenses that the fire department's been absorbing out of our standard line items as we've provided those materials citywide at this point. So, our expenses specifically related to COVID overall have been relatively minimal compared to other municipalities.
Great. That's good to hear, I guess. That means we've been lucky so far. But there's no reason to think that our expenses will be over that $33,000 mark related to PPE.
No. So this is one of 3 grants actually that have been applied for a very similar type of funding. And this, again, barring some significant unforeseen circumstances over as we move forward with this virus, there's no expectations to go over this amount.
Got it. And one last question. how are we sort of sequestering this funding so it doesn't simply fall to our bottom line and get spent on something other than COVID? I'm assuming we're going to have to submit some sort of a report in the final analysis and perhaps give money back if we don't spend all 33,000.
So the way this grant works is and I'll let Mr. Pavlak jump on here if I'm saying anything incorrectly, but basically we request a drawdown of funds as needed. So
Okay.
we're not getting a $33,000 check. It's the grant funding is there, and as that money is needed, we'll submit a drawdown request, and then that'll be moved over into the accounts to offset expenses.
Got it. And obviously it's okay if we wait until we have a substantial number of expenses. That is to say, Mr. Pavlak doesn't need to submit an invoice to the feds every time we buy like a 10 packet of N95 masks or something.
No, so the way this grant was submitted was it was submitted in Mayor Slaughter's name, and I'm the financial point of contact. So drawdowns, as they have been with federal grants from the fire department previously, I'll be the point of contact I'll be the one actually doing the grant drawdowns. So we'll submit one here with our initial expenses up to this point, and then we'll continue to track them. We track them. When we were kind of in full swing with COVID early on, we were tracking them weekly across all departments.
Okay.
Now that things have slowed down a little bit, there's significantly less, but an example would be we need N95 masks for fire and police personnel. So there's about a $3,000 expense that we'll be paying for here within the next week or so. We'll sit on that for about a month. If anything else comes up, then we'll request a drawdown at that point. But no, it wouldn't be on a weekly basis or anything. That.
Okay,
like
good.
that.
So not a super onerous schedule where if you don't submit the receipt immediately, you don't get it. Okay, sounds
Correct.
good.
Correct.
Any other questions from any other members of finance or anyone else?
Yeah, just one point of clarification. I think initially, Chief, you said that other city departments weren't tracking their expenses related to this, and then I think as you were explaining this, you had mentioned that they were. Are they or aren't they? I think we should be if we're not.
We absolutely are, and I don't. I may have misspoke. I didn't. So no, we initially during the pandemic, Mr. Pavlak and I developed a tracking method. Essentially an Excel spreadsheet that went out to every city department, and any expenses that they incurred were sent to Mr. Pavlak and I, and we've tracked those every step of the way to this point. So yeah, I apologize if that came out incorrect.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to clarify. I mean, between especially police, but every citywide department, public works, etc. It would just be good to understand what that is, and if we're not doing it already, we should be. So I would just wanted to clarify that. That's all.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Under the circumstances, Chief, $33,000 to cover all of our departments that would utilize this, because this would also include hand sanitizer for people that are working in City Hall also. So, that's not a lot of money when you really look at what all this covers.
So it may not seem it, but we had a significant cash prior to the COVID event. We haven't had to purchase any hand sanitizer between donations from outside agencies. We had 15 gallons of concentrated hand sanitizer donated by Lonza. We've had a considerable amount of, N95 masks. This is the first time we're going to have to purchase these, through the initial pandemic. So really expense-wise, I don't have the exact number off the top of my, in front of me, but off the top of my head, we're significantly less than $10,000 at this point in expenses for PPE. And like I said, masks, really masks have been our biggest expense at this point.
It's a big expense for all of us for constantly replacing our masks. I am thrilled to hear that there were donations made to the city. I mean, that's I don't think any of us realized that. And really thank you very much to these companies that did do that. I mean, it's vitally important to the city.
Mm-hmm. Vitally important, yeah, to all of us. So that's good to know. We've been lucky. Are there any further questions then?
not for me.
Nope.
Adam, Randy, all right. Then I'll take a motion.
I make a motion, we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much, Chief Killian, for joining us. We appreciate your time. All right. I have not been keeping an eye on our attendees. There's Derek.
We're all here.
It made it, okay, great. Thanks, Joe. Okay, then, unless anyone has any objections, I think the next item that we'll move to is item number 2. Is that sound okay to you, Joe?
That's the pajama factory?
Yeah, for Rackby, that's the Rackby one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Liz, just for the record, I'll be abstaining from this one, FYI.
okay. Got it, Adam. Yeah, I saw that. Are you abstaining from discussion as well, Adam?
Yes, I'm abstaining from everything. Yep.
Okay. All right. Item number 2, resolution of the city authorizing the submission of application for funding to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for a redevelopment assistance capital program grant in the amount of $2 million for the Pajama Factory. Mr. Pavlock.
Yes, this is a resolution authorizing the city of Williamsport to submit a grant, a RACB grant application on behalf of the Pajama Factory. The Pajama Factory in 2019 submitted for a $3 million RACB project and was notified, and I think in August of last year, that they were awarded a $2 million grant. The next step that they need to complete is the completion of the 19 tab complete application, with one of those tabs being a resolution by the city submitting the grant application, the full application. The purpose of the city preparing this resolution is the city will actually be the grantee for this award. And the Pajama Factory, the recipient, will be the sub-grantee. The city and the Pajama Factory will need to comply with all requirements of the RACB program. As part of the resolution authorizing the submission, there's also a cooperation agreement. Basically, the cooperation agreement outlines the key components that the city is responsible for, along with the responsibilities of the Pajama Factory. Basically, the city's position in this is that we are a pass-through and that the Pajama Factory is responsible for all compliance and other components of the RACB grant. With that, the project that this would be supporting is identified in the cooperation agreement and includes 3 components. Parking in accordance with an approved stormwater plan, roof work, and the addition of high efficiency heating and air conditioning for the building. Again, as I said, the Pajama Factory will be responsible for the preparation and submission of the application and all compliance documentation. They're required to match the RACB funds with their own funding and obtain bridge financing as part of the RACB requirements. And then they'll be ultimately responsible for any ineligible expenditures. To my understanding, the Pajama Factory has contracted with Penn Strategies to work on administering the project. And we do have Sid First from Penn Strategies, along with the Pajama Factory owner, Mark Winkleman, with us in attendance today to answer any questions regarding the project. With that, I guess I'll turn it over for questions.
Okay. Mark or Sid or Derek, does anybody else want to speak about the project before we start questions?
I don't have anything to add at this time from my end.
I'm fine. I mean,
Okay.
here to run through questions.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Sid, and everyone. Okay, well, Adam's out. Bonnie, what do you got?
What do I got? First of all, Mark, thank you very much for everything you've done with the Pajama Factory. This has been an ongoing process, which I know the process will continue on for many more years. It's been the changes that have occurred over the many years have been really good. Looking at what we're doing with this grant right now, and looking at the proposals, I think our main thing is to make sure the parking lot is done. The infrastructure is taken care of. I think that's what we're looking at. I know those things don't bring in the finances that you need, but they also, what it does do is it makes the neighborhood look better all the way around. I'm only going to say it that way. So to me, with this funding, what were your plans? And I'm assuming you realize that we've talked about the parking lot for several years. So that's one of the main things, right?
Yes, that's correct. If I can jump in, is this good?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, parking's number one now. I mean, we really need to get it done now. And what's nice about this grant is I don't really need to make any money with this money being spent, if that makes sense. It's grant, so it's free money, and let's put it in places that will help secure the building for the long-term future. So that was sort of the point of all of this. So we're willing to and prepared to put parking as a number one priority.
I think that's what we're concerned with. We also know how good, with everything that you're putting into inside, between the artists and the small businesses that are in there. I think the outside is going to look much better when the parking lot is done. What I understood, and Sid, maybe you can answer this, with the infrastructure, what was stated was the roof also? Was that stated?
Sid? Sid's on mute.
Yes, it was. That was the roof work, including if economically feasible with the RACB budget, a green roof.
And then also the heating and air conditioning systems, Bonnie.
Right. So those are three really important factors, which is going to cost you a lot of money at this point. Those are three really expensive projects.
Yeah.
But I know that it'll be accomplished, and it's going to be much better all the way around for the building itself and for the neighborhood itself. I am really thrilled with the project. I've said many times the Pajama Factory has proved itself out many times over the years. Projects like this in other cities have not lasted half as long as what the Pajama Factory has. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone on into it, and I think everybody is really proud of what goes on. There are so many people that talk about what goes on in the Pajama Factory. I'm pleased that Penn Strategies is working through this. I know we're a pass-through, but the project itself, as far as taking care of the grant application, and Sid, you're on mute, so you have to take yourself off of mute. Penn Strategies will be handling all of the nitty-gritty of this grant, which is a lot of work involved. Sid, can you answer that question?
Sid's having trouble. He's over 30 years old, and the technology is getting him.
Let me unmute him.
Go ahead, Joe.
I can.
I know Sid is jumping. He wants to say stuff.
Yeah.
I can't see how to. Oh, here, I'm sorry. There, Sid's
There he is.
unmuted now.
Go, Sid.
You there?
Yep, we're here. Sid?
Maybe Sid's Wi-Fi connection is not quite strong enough. I've been having that issue lately.
It's a shame because I know Sid would like to talk about this project. He's been working on it for so long with Mark.
He has been.
Hey, Chris, is Chris Cooley still on this?
I've unmuted him, but I don't know what's.
Joe, do you want to, because he could just call in, right?
He is
From like-
called in.
Oh, he is called
He's on via telephone.
Okay. I was gonna say, I could text you his phone
Okay,
number.
how am I doing now?
Oh,
All
good,
right.
Sid. There you are.
All right, it's unbelievable. Right. Probably being a senior citizen of this conversation and my passion and love for Williamsport, as Bonnie knows, Bonnie and I go way, way back. I think the Pajama Factory and the investment and passion that Mark has put into this is so unique and so important to Williamsport and the East End. And the RACB grant allows Mark to deal with money from the Commonwealth to deal with the infrastructure issues, the roof, the HVAC, the parking lot, which, as Bonnie is saying, will make this area look much better. I think it's going to have an economic impact on the East End to secure the property values and make living there more attractive, which is all great. So we're pleased to be part of this. We're pleased. We are experienced. As Joe can tell you, the big journey is ahead of us in completing the application and business plan. And we're well along the way of that. We're hoping for positive recommendation and vote from the city so we can have those components. And we anticipate submitting the application and business plan in the next 2 weeks.
All right.
And just going off that, the components that have been completed are in a fairly well draft position. I did email out yesterday to the city clerk and some additional information to council city emails this morning.
Yeah, I saw that, Joe. I haven't had time to review all of it because it was quite a bit of information, but
I just wanted to make sure that there's some key things in there which further identifies the project and other pieces there. So some of it is beneficial if you have the chance to look it over.
yeah, I'll do. Right.
And when
review.
we complete
Mhm.
complete the application and business plan, we will make sure the city has a copy of that application, which Joe knows is about 3 inches thick. But you will have that for your record purposes and for your review purposes.
Good. Thanks, Sid. Bonnie, did you have any further questions right now?
No. The only thing I want to say, Joe, you sent this to our city email. I don't know how to open that up, so you have to send it to my other email.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yep.
So if I can ask a handful of questions here, some of these are just sort of to fully explain it to anyone who might be watching the meeting and not aware of the way that this arrangement is working. But effectively, the Pajama Factory has been awarded a grant from the state. The state will, however, not hand it to a private entity directly. So the city is the pass-through agency. So our goal as the Finance Committee is both to make certain that the Pajama Factory gets to utilize this grant funding that will make, as Marcus pointed out, a huge difference in the way the financing works on the building, because he will then have the good fortune as a landlord to be able to fund a bunch of infrastructure work that will not generate rent with money that he does not have, with money that is not his own. So
Correct.
which is great. And so that is a very exciting element of the grant. Our other goal, however, as the Finance Committee is not only to make certain that the Pajama Factory is left in a better financial position by the receipt of this grant funding and the city acting as a pass-through, but also to make certain, of course, that the city is not on the hook for any sort of expenditures related to the Pajama Factory's receipt of this grant and our role as a pass-through. Because, the role of a pass-through organization is to pass the money through, not necessarily to incur expenses related to the passage of that money. So the agreement itself is structured such that we don't, such that the city is financially off the hook while serving as a pass. If I can ask a handful of questions then about that. My understanding is that the Pajama Factory is contracted with Penn Strategies to do all the grant administration.
That's correct.
Correct.
And everyone then in that case is aware of precisely what that grant administration entails. The city has spent countless hours administering other RACP grants that we've been the recipients of.
Exactly.
It's a huge amount of work. And Mr. Winkleman, you are well aware that these funds, as we've learned as a city government and as other private applicants have learned, come with a lot of requirements from the state that are not standard when you're spending your own money. Things like prevailing wage, and all of the funding that's spent on this project, both your matching funds and the $2 million in state funds, have to be spent in accordance with the state's guidelines, including prevailing wage guidelines. So we're obviously everyone's aware of that in this project as well, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
And then because the city is acting only as a pass-through organization, I see the item number 6 in this agreement is bridge financing. The Pajama Factory is the entity that will be holding a line of financing sufficient to guarantee continued expenditure of funds while we wait for reimbursement, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, because we've had lots of discussions about this, Mr. Pavlak, you've made these fine gentlemen aware that the city is still waiting for reimbursement on some RACP funds that we've expended years ago, correct?
I've not passed that along, but I believe that Penn Strategies with other RACP programs is aware of the process to pass on to the owner.
Yeah, sometimes the reimbursement can be a bit of a lengthy process. So when we're talking about bridge financing, that bridge is frequently rather long. And the state is very particular about the documentation before they release the reimbursement. So this is a very nitpicky process, but a really exciting process because you get $2 million, and, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then I see an item in here, 5B, I believe, that the developer, the Pajama Factory, PJ Factory LLC, has a bond.
That section is for in the event of any ineligible expenditures, the Pajama Factory has agreed to secure a $250,000 payment bond or equivalent security to provide security for the city. And that was an amount that was what the Pajama Factory felt that they could provide for that insurance.
Got it. So sorry, Joe, my Wi-Fi or something timed me out for a second, but you said this is this was the extent of a bond the Pajama Factory felt they could provide. Do we feel as though that will adequately cover the city's potential liability in this agreement?
Just based on past projects, I believe they're not going to get the money till they meet all the conditions of the grant. So if something would be determined to be ineligible by the state's consultant, it would be addressed before the money would be passed through, in my beliefs and experience. So I don't think that number is a small number. I think that it would be adequate based on the checks and balances that are around. Would I like to see the full amount? Yes, but we need to work with the businesses we're working with and find a medium or a happy middle ground. And I think that this was something that we worked through collectively.
Great. I'm certain, Mr. Pavlak, that the city administration has set up some sort of periodic review of progress on this project. Is that the case? I don't see anything specifically
Yeah.
stated in the cooperation agreement.
Joe, do you want to answer that, or I can answer it?
Throughout the process going forward, the city will be involved as grantee.
Exactly.
The state will contact the city directly
Okay.
in most cases. So it's not that we won't be out of the loop
Right.
with the project as it progresses. As for the construction, the Pajama Factory and their consultant, Penn Strategies, will need to keep us in the loop as to what's happening, and we'll be updated on that at the periodic construction monitoring visits that the state's consultant will conduct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Councilwoman, under the RACB process, because the city is the applicant, it means that all communication relative to the RACB application and award, the city must be copied on all of that communication.
Good. Okay. That's good to hear. I'm just trying to make certain that you know how things kind of fall by the
Yeah.
wayside. Then you haven't heard anything for 3 or 4 months or a year or something. So
Well,
there's-
I can tell you from experience, as Joe will, and you will too, from your experience, nothing falls through the cracks of the RACB process. It's just unbelievable.
yeah, it's true. They are exhaustive. Which is a good thing with state taxpayers.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay. To the extent that it's feasible, Mr. First, it would be, I think that I would appreciate it as a member of the Finance Committee, and I suspect my fellow members of the Finance Committee might appreciate a time-to-time update on how the project's looking and the totality of the project that's happening. I know the RACB funding is being spent specifically on HVAC, roof work and parking, but I'm certain that the matching funds are going into elements within the building that are also interesting and beneficial to the structure. So if it fits into your schedule to come back and update us periodically, I think we would appreciate it.
Just unique to this project,
Absolutely.
Councilwoman
Pardon me?
Mealy, the matching funds are going to be actual land value. So there won't be an additional project. The 3 projects will be the construction related to this award.
Okay, got it. So the project is a $2 million project stacked against the appraised value of the property.
Correct.
Right. The appraised value of the property is $5 million.
Holy Mark,
Certified.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Quite the asset you got over there.
Yeah. Lots of tenants.
Well, it's a building. Actually, can I ask one very funny, tiny question? I thought the net footprint of that building was 300,000 square feet.
The footprint, that's the floor area.
Okay. Oh, well, because I see a 60,000 square foot for the HVAC. It says high efficiency heating and air conditioning for the entire 60,000 square foot building. Which building is that?
Yeah, the entire is misleading. That's building 7. We put in a good heating and heating system, a really good heating system in building 9. That's the middle of the big building.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Building 7's the southern one.
Okay, so the one that runs along Memorial, kind of? Yeah, that's Memorial out back there. Okay. All right. Oh, good. That's exciting. That's a beautiful building. They're all beautiful buildings. It's really a neat property, Mark.
Did you all know that this building is on the historic register?
That's
Right, Mark?
Yeah. We got it registered.
That's fantastic. That's good to know on a number of levels. Excellent. And we're really glad that it's working out so well for you. And I do hope that with all of this work, we'll see a huge work tends to beget work. So I think with you doing all this work on your structure, there will probably be an ancillary benefit to the rest of the neighborhood, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just to kick in here, we're helping out a little bit. We have fiber optic service in the building. And at the moment we have excess capacity. So we've put antennas up on the roof and we're beaming free Wi-Fi around the neighborhood. Like to do some more improvements on that, but that's a start.
I was gonna say, is that legal, Mark? Or shouldn't you be telling us that in the middle? Anyway, that's exciting.
Yeah, if we catch you tapping in on this.
I'm gonna go out and hang out near the pajama factory a little
Yeah, no.
People do already, it's fine.
Okay.
That's why Way Cool Bean is an incredible place to go.
Yeah, it's very true. Okay, so Joe, in time for Thursday, I'll try to be sure that I review some of the ancillary documentation that you provided, because I have not had time to get to that yet. Are there any highlights from the documentation that we got yesterday and today that anyone wants to bring up, other than the resolution and the cooperation agreement? Anything that's particularly necessary that I review of the document you sent, Joe?
No, I just think it further goes into the project or the ownership of the building, their plans for the building. I think it's informational. I don't know that necessarily you need to look at it for this piece of it, but it may be beneficial just to know what's happening and where they're going up at the pajama factory.
Got it.
I would only add to what Joe said is the information that Joe and I talked about and I supplied to Joe. There are actually sections. They're called tabs in the RACB process. So these aren't independent briefings. These are actually part of the submissal of the application and business plan. It goes to the state.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking at tab 3. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be sure to review this stuff then in time for Thursday. Thank you for providing all this documentation, guys. It's been this, Joe, how many times has the city been a pass-through organization for a RACP grant? Have we done this before?
I think in my time here, we currently have Lycoming College. Their gateway building was a pass-through through the city. And then I think early on in my career here, Hope Enterprise received a RACB grant for the acquisition of their current property up on Reach Road. Others in the area, I think that the county may have been a pass-through for the library for their expansion there on Market Street. And those are the things that are coming to my head at this point.
Yeah. And the county was maybe a pass-through for Textron too?
I believe I've heard that. I don't know.
No. Lycoming County and IDA was the pass-through on Lycoming Indians.
Okay, got it. Okay, but so yeah, it's certainly been done before, and by us and by other entities within the region. So that's good. Okay, then Bonnie, any further questions from you?
No, unless Sid, do you have something else to say?
I want to make sure that people understand the significance of this award relative to other RACB awards. I mean, I think the city has got more or less, but in our experience at Penn Strategies, and we knew the governor was particularly interested in this project, a $2 million RACB award is not the normal award. Normally, it's around $1 million to $1.5 million. So I think there's a confirmation that in the city of Williamsport and the Commonwealth, the projects that repurpose buildings that have historical significance are of great interest to everybody.
That's well observed, Sid, and I would agree with you. I mean, yes, in our experience, at least of late, grant awards this large for redevelopment and capital assistance project grants are rare. So that means that this is a project of particular interest to the state, which is very exciting. Yeah. given that to a certain extent, then the governor was generous with us on this project, I think it behooves us, of course, to make certain that we use this money to go as far as we can. and that we do a good job, that we do it timely, that we get in and get out and take care of the project, because
So
we-
agreed, so
we-
agreed. And
we
I want
know that-
to compliment Joe on his knowledge of Rugby and working through what he needs to brief the finance committee and ultimately the city council. It's a great benefit to have somebody who understands this thing, because this is a long journey. We're talking years here.
Well, I think Joe is simply excited to not be having to do the administration on this grant, am I right? Because he's gotten stuck doing it on a couple others. But yeah, this is exciting. But you know, as we know as a city, you know, as grant recipients, that our success and our ability to work together with, you know, as a city administration, as a developer, as the agency doing the administration for the entity doing the administration for the grant, our ability to work together and make this a project that is a credit to the state, is what will make it likely that the city will continue to receive funds for projects like this in the future. And ideally, perhaps even the pajama factory will continue to receive funds for projects like this in the future. So thanks a lot for putting together a good project, guys. And let's try and make sure that we carry this forward and do a good job on it all the way through. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, Bonnie, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion, we pass this on to a full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks a lot for today, guys. Yeah. We appreciate everybody's time, and thanks very much. And we'll be seeing you, I'm sure, here soon.
Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Up next then, Mr. Yoder, you're welcome to come back and start talking again. The next item that we'll be dealing with on the agenda is item number 1, a review. The Finance Committee began reviewing the capital projects budget at our last meeting, but due to time constraints, we didn't finish up that review. So we put it on this agenda as well, just in case we had any further questions about the remainder of the capital budget. Mr. Pavlak, I think we have made it up to the public safety tab in the 2020 to 2026 budget. Members of finance, would you like to continue reviewing from the public safety on down, or do you simply want to ask questions? Do we not have any further questions related to these items? What can you let me know?
Right now, I don't have any other questions. I don't know about Adam.
No, none in particular at this time.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Mr. Pavlak, I believe that we only reviewed the capital projects budget through page 2 in the full body of council as well. So I will probably recommend to Mr. Allison that we have a little bit more discussion about that on second reading as well. Let me look here and see. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is acting up here. If I have any other questions.
Sorry, it's sucking on my face.
Sorry, guys. Wait. Let me see here. Our transportation. Joe, can I actually have you go through not so much the public safety information, but the general government and transportation segments? Can you talk to me a bit about that in terms of what work? I see money built in the first year for the Trade and Transit Center complex. What's that 1.5?
Based on discussions with RVT, that 1.5 million can be used for renovations with the open space that's in there. It's my understanding that the FTA or the state will allow the space to be renovated for a new user, so long as that new user that comes in does provide rent for the facility.
Fantastic. Well, that's excellent. And we're also intending to improve the CNG facility.
Yeah, the understanding on that project is for building out structures to house the buses and support vehicles up there.
Okay.
And then some additional office and facility maintenance needs.
All right. Fantastic. And in terms of so we have money built in to the general government budget. Theoretically, all bank financing here related to potential moving expenses, renovations, and acquisition.
That's just proposed numbers again, to keep that on our radar. I believe it was in the first year out. In the prior year capital budget, we're keeping it on there until the ad hoc committee can come to their conclusion and recommendation to council, and whichever way we determine to go forward. At that point, we'll need to make sure that we can pull together the necessary funding.
Got it. And talk to me about where we're at with the packet digitization and other like finance upgrades, the smaller numbers that I'm seeing in the general or in the city hall budget.
It's funny on the council packet digitization, when that was brought up at the planning commission, they indicated that the county planning had looked into that, and while it works for some, it doesn't work for others. So they just made the comment just to keep an eye on that, to make sure it's something that's beneficial and not that something's going to sit aside. But in the 2020 budget, there are funds set aside for implementing that project. With support equipment and the finance software upgrades, support equipment, we budget 50,000. That's copiers, computers, etc., across all city departments, not specifically identified, and then updating and replacing our current finance software.
Right. Yeah, I was hoping that we were making some progress on that. I would. Sorry.
Process for quite some time, and I think it'll need to occur in phases. Be it start with the finance side, then add in some HR tools, and try to work to get it all to today's standards.
Yeah. On the council packet digitization thing, I would observe that I think this year, as none other, has made a good case for us developing some sort of system for that. I agree with the Planning Commission that it may not prove to be useful to every member of council that we ever have, but having had a system like that in place before the COVID-19 crisis started would have made things, I think, substantially simpler, and the sort of everyone dealing with our packets and all the information related to them would have been much more straightforward. So I do think that's something that we should try to move forward with sooner rather than later.
And again,
sorry.
The funds are budgeted, so it's just a matter of council determining what their needs are and working with IT to pull the trigger, should we say.
Yeah, yeah, what I was going to say is that while that's something that I am passionate about, I don't know that I am the person to attempt to structure something like that. I would defer to somebody like Adam, or Dave, someone slightly younger than me with a little bit more technical expertise to put together the plan. But I do know that it would have been very helpful to me, and I think all of us the last several months. So. Okay. And Last question. Oops, excuse me. Whoa, hang on here. Sorry.
While you're looking, Liz, can I ask this question?
Yeah, please.
The Trade and Transit Center complex with the 1.5, that's just in case we move there, or are the plans a definite of rearranging that room?
That's for any modifications needed for any tenant.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the possibility of us moving there?
That could be an option. It's not specific as to who the tenant would be or whatever, but that's the plan for that. I believe that they're trying to get these funds set aside. It's not to say that they're specifically have been awarded through the RVT funding sources. But I believe that the plan submitted was to be able to utilize those funds to renovate the current structure for occupancy.
So far from what I can understand, the room itself has been used for a lot of other venues other than city council. To break that up into other areas.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Katz, this would be Trade and Transit 1. The space formerly occupied by the chamber.
Okay, I'm in the wrong place. I'm sorry.
And then potentially other smaller upgrades throughout the complex, but I think that the main piece would be looking at any potential needs to renovate for a new tenant.
That I can see because there's a lot of renovations that could be done there. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong building. I'm sorry.
I know you get the new Trade and Transit and then you forget about the old. Out with the old, in with the new, right?
Seriously. No, so I can, okay, wrong place, and I can understand it now. Okay.
Thanks, Patty. Joe, if I can follow up with one quick question on the public safety tab on the capital budget. The Bearcat tactical vehicle, I see that we've got bank financing proposed as the funding source for what would appear to be about a $375,400 expense for, I think it's like an armored vehicle, the Bearcat, correct?
That's my understanding, a tactical vehicle, yes.
Understood. I'm going to make the same, given that I see that that expense beginning in next year's capital budget. In fact, I think it was deferred from this year's capital budget. I'm going to make the point here that I made when we saw those agreements related to the SRT a couple of weeks ago. This from the description in the narrative, the project narrative that we got at the back of the capital projects budget, it sounds as though this is a vehicle that will serve not just the city but the entire county, and consequently, while I'm not necessarily objecting to that being something that the city owns and cares for, I would not be comfortable with us taking out a $400,000 loan to or a lease agreement to try and purchase a vehicle that isn't really in the end just a piece of city property. It seems to me like that should be the sort of thing that we look for and you'll excuse me, the other noise in the background is my daughter. But it seems like that should be the sort of thing that we look for, that we have a small amount of city matching funding for and look for a grant to foot the bill for the rest of it. Personally, I would not be comfortable with seeing the city, especially in the economic condition that we find ourselves in right now and for the next few years, expending that funding. So I'll just register that, I think, here at Finance, and then again at the full body of council meeting on Thursday, that I know that this is a wish list, but that the projects in the first 2 years tend to be things that we are thinking about committing to. I personally do not feel comfortable committing to a Bearcat vehicle if the city is footing the bill for it. We would need to find some sort of grant funding for that, to my way of thinking.
And just to add on from the administration side, the chief has indicated that he'd like to look at our partners, we'll call them, or other municipalities to help support any costs with that. But being that it be proposed as bank financing or leasing, any project that would come through, we'd have to have those funds budgeted somewhere. So it would be a matter that council would see that if it were to be proposed that the city would be footing the bill for the full 75 a year, if that's the cost. It would be seen in some budget as to how we would come up with those costs. But again, I want to stress that the chief has indicated that he agrees with the philosophy of the other partners or municipalities contributing towards those costs. So I think that that'll be something that he'll be looking at if that does come to fruition.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. What was I going to say? Yeah, thanks for the update. Are there any further questions from anyone else on the finance committee related to the capital budget?
Not from me.
Okay. Adam, anything from you?
No, I mean, you had made a comment about council packet digitization. I would just say, between coming up with a structure, I think the biggest question is more archiving and what have you. How are we doing it on what medium? Aside from answering that question, I don't know why we would need most of, if any of that money to do that, but we can figure that out sooner than later.
Yeah, I think the funding, Adam, was related to purchasing workstations.
Gotcha.
Like iPads or something similar for everyone to
Gotcha.
materials on. Otherwise,
that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, there's really not much involved in terms of the cost of the digitization process is exceptionally low, but the cost of sort of providing something that people can utilize to view it, and we might not, all of us might be able to figure out, it might be the sort of thing that not every council member needs some sort of a workstation that most of us provide, but yeah. Okay. If I hear no further questions on this, I'd take I guess I'd take a motion to send it back to the full body of council. I think that's probably the best way to handle it since we've had a bit of further discussion. Anybody got one?
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Make a motion, we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, then the last item on our agenda, aside from any related items, is the Q2 Finance Committee report from Mr. Pavlak. Joe, do you have anything to say to introduce these items?
No, we've put together the second quarter report along with the police overtime, the Campbell Durant legal fees incurred through June. And then I did throw another summary sheet for the 12/31/19 numbers as where we expect to be as we're finalizing and closing that year out.
Got it. All right. Members of the Finance Committee, Joe did give these to us toward the tail end of last week. Do you have questions on them now? Do you want to talk about this now? Do you need more time to review it?
I went over this and I had talked my questions out with Joe over several things. One of the things other than the overtime was also the rec department, questioning the expenses there. And, we don't realize, we just assume that because things are shut down, that there weren't expenses. But as he explained to me, we did have the Easter egg hunt that did not come to fruition, but the expenses of buying everything that needed for that came right before we were shut down. So the bills had to be paid for that. Plus, there is still the expense of what's going on with the pool. You still have to maintain. So those are my only two that I really looked at as far as expenses went and talked to Joe about was with the overtime and also the rec department.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, Joe, just to double back on the overtime, on the overtime question. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on with police overtime. It looks as though, what's our budget for the year for police overtime?
I think you would like to keep it at 160 to 180.
It's 160 to 160 overtime, 160 comp. So the number we have to date is 137.
Between comp and OT and straight overtime.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're slightly under half, being halfway through the year. And then, I mean, the biggest expense, looking quarter to quarter, the biggest difference was in the first quarter, which I believe we addressed last. We're pretty much consistent, a little bit under the second quarter's overtime, 2020 versus 2019.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly our overtime has increased, well, by about $40,000 over 2019 at this point, which is pretty intense. You know, I think that, you know, Bonnie, perhaps within public safety, that's something that needs to come up. But, you know, just because we budget a number doesn't mean that we're looking to spend it all, for one thing. And secondarily, we're entering the more overtime heavy portion of the year, a time when everyone takes summer vacations, you know, holiday vacations come, you know, fall and winter. And so if our overtime expenses increase from here, which is what I think they would be projected in an average year to do, is that correct, Joe? I would assume that last year in the third and fourth quarters, our overtime was higher than it was in the first and second.
I'd have to pull up. I know that typically in the third quarter, we do have a lot more events. Being it's Little League is in town, Williamsport welcomes the world, 4th of July. There are a lot more, so I would expect that manpower needs would increase in that third quarter, along with the summer vacation season.
Right.
But we're not going to have the events this year, that's for sure.
Right.
Correct.
So we'll have a savings there. But I think it still might be worth underlining, Bonnie, that we really need to see a savings in overtime.
Well, talking with the chief about some of the things, the overtime has to do with, we have one officer that's called into the service. We have one that's out with a broken collarbone. We did have a couple of instances where we had to have extra police with a couple of things that happened in the city. Hopefully we'll see what happens, you know, because I did discuss this with him today, where we're going with this. And his objective is to keep it down as low as he possibly can. But because of circumstances, there was a need for this.
Yeah, I mean, I to a certain extent, I understand that. I think my point, however, is my point on it is that this is a year when really we've had far fewer events in the city than we ordinarily would if we're maxing out overtime without having the Little League World Series and Williamsport welcomes the world and the 4th of July. Then that's going to make next year a real hot mess. So
Exactly.
We need to focus on driving down overtime while it's, you know, a possibility on saving ourselves money when we don't have a lot of events in the city, because we are going to need that money next year. So
discuss that. I did discuss that with him, and the chief is fully aware of what he has to do and what he has to accomplish.
Okay.
So we're, you know, but you're right. It's something that we have to have an ongoing conversation to make sure things are going to be kept on an even keel. You and I have been constantly going on, we're going to survive this year. It's next year that's going to be really, really hard to deal with.
Exactly right. And I, I know that we keep harping on it with everyone, and especially with the police department, because Chief Hagan has been coming to us with a bunch of different items. But I think we need to keep that in the forefront of everyone's mind. They're right. We need to be, trying to operate as slim as we can right now, so that we take as much money as we can into next year's budget season. And sorry, so if you would try to remind him of that on public safety, Bonnie, that would probably be helpful.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
In the Chiefs' defense, it looks like he's starting to get down that track. If you look at the second quarter, if I'm reading this right, he came in lower than last year. The first quarter is what's really blowing this out of proportion. So hopefully if he can continue on that, go ahead.
He had told us that he was going to be lower this quarter because he was on minimum manning for the entire pandemic moment. So I guess my fear is that we're looking at numbers more like the first quarter for the next 2 quarters. If we spend $85,000 over both of the next 2 quarters, then we're going to be $10,000 over budget.
Gotcha.
In OT and comp time, and I don't know where that money is going to come from, let alone how we're going to budget that much for it next year. So
Gotcha.
that's my concern. Is that the Chiefs seem to be projecting that we were going to be spending $85,000 in quarter 3 and quarter 4 already, and we need to not spend that much money.
We just can't do that. We can't afford it.
Right. So I think we have to. But I agree, Adam. The numbers are better. But he had told us that they would be. So I'm afraid that the next 2 quarters numbers won't be as good unless we try to hammer it home.
Well, he's shown us that he can do it. Let's keep let's keep pushing him down that track. I agree with you. I mean,
yeah.
We're at where we're at, and we need to see what we need to see.
Mm-hmm. Hey Joe, looking at this year's budget so far, the numbers through the end of June. What can you tell me about the fact that it looks like our expenditures in a number of departments are actually pretty low, are under 50% for 50% of the way through the year? Are we seeing any kind of savings related to the fact that City Hall was closed down? Or is this just that expenses haven't come in yet?
I think it's just a slower spending of those. Some of those departments, you have your bigger ticket items, a piece of equipment or things of that nature. And we've asked departments to slow down where they could. So we're hoping that helps us come in under budget. Cost increase from year to year. And you can see that the end of the first or second quarter 2020 compared to 2019, we're actually $80,000 lower when you have rates increasing, healthcare costs going up. So looking at that, seeing that we're equal to last year, it looks like departments are trying to minimize their cost in 2020.
Well, that's good. Yeah, hopefully that plays out. And we thank everyone for the hard work they're doing trying to drive those numbers down. That will hopefully make a bit of a difference. Are real estate taxes still coming in as they ordinarily would?
It's a hard thing. I did talk to the treasurer about that to see where he thought we would be at. With discount coming to a close here on the 15th and FACE set to end, I think the end of August, his thoughts were that we should have a better picture with the third quarter reports, being that those 2 target dates that homeowners and taxpayers look to meet will both be complete. So we're hoping that we can look at the end of the third quarter and get some year-to-year comparison to see how we stand.
Got it. Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. Any further questions from anyone else on the finance committee related to these numbers?
No, Joe. The only you would kind of, I think skirted around it a little bit. And I don't know that we really asked you this directly, but I mean, earlier in the year, you gave us a revised budget for the rest of the year in finance. I mean, how are you seeing our expenses since then line up with that revised budget that we went over?
I did not compare, and it wasn't a revised budget. It was more like projections. So I can
Fair.
take the expenditures and compare them to the projections, and see where we stand on that end. I was starting to do it, and then after talking to the treasurer and not getting a clear picture of where, not getting an idea in my head of how we stood on the tax side, I kind of put that aside to hold
Yeah.
off a month or so to revise that. So it's something that I can look back at and run some new projections. But it's not something that I was clear on at that time. And being that we're getting to the month of July, again, the phase tax period or the discount tax period just ending, we might be able to get that, and maybe I can look back in some way and look at face, the end of face in 2019 and compare that to where we stand here in July. You know, look at some ways of gauging how we
Yeah.
look compared to last year.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. If we can look at, I guess, our revised expenditure expectations or forecasts compared with what we're actually seeing since we've done that, I think that would be handy, regardless of what our revenue is. I mean, it would be great to have lower costs than budgeted, as well as being online with revenue. That would certainly put us in a better position going into next year.
I'll try to run expenditures, see where the expenditures are at the end of July, and then project those out for the remainder of the year, and get something end of August, early September. I guess there's a 3-week break in August. I'll try to do the end of August or first thing in September, get some revised projections.
Cool.
That'd be all.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Is Nick, are you here?
Yes, I am.
How are we doing with taxes coming in?
Well, they're pretty good. Like Joe said, it's kind of hard to compare because we're still in the face period for city tax bills, which normally at this time of year we'd be in the penalty period. And once you get to the penalty period, you only collect about 10% of total taxes during that period, and they come the last couple weeks in December, because between July 1st and December 31st, the tax bill doesn't change. It's in penalty that entire time. But right now, since we're still in the face period until August 31st, we have developers, we have businesses, and we have individuals that normally pay at the end of the face period that have not paid yet, that'll wait about a month to pay. So we're a little bit behind, but it's really hard to tell whether it's just because of the extended deadlines or whether it's because of, COVID-related financial issues. With our other taxes, we actually have had a lot of business privilege taxes come in this past week because the new deadline was 7/15. And I think after tomorrow, we'll probably be over $2 million in collections for business privilege tax, which is actually getting close to where we were at the end of last year in business privilege tax. Now, some of that's because we can process faster than Berkheimer, but we are already above where we were as of August 1st last year in business privilege tax. And local service tax is about even. Houses are really starting to sell a lot recently, so really transfer tax coming back. So it's looking okay right now, but it's really the biggest factor is going to be earned income tax, which we still don't have a good picture of how that's been affected yet.
The news isn't that bad though, right now. But we said that this year would be okay.
Right,
Yeah.
not yet, but earned income tax, we still haven't seen the full effect of that. Next year's business privilege tax, all the Little League revenue, all of the restaurants that were closed, all the hotels that were down, all of that revenue, will be gone in the filings in 2021 for business privilege. So it's still early to tell. We know there's going to be an impact, but it's still hard to tell how much.
No, that's for sure. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Any further questions then on the financial reports?
No,
Nope.
Okay, then moving on to item number 7, any related items?
Nope.
nope.
Okay, Joe, anything from you?
No.
Okay, then I would take a motion to adjourn and get Bonnie over to Public Works.
No, it's canceled.
Oh, I
I am
thought
free and clear here.
That doesn't mean we have to keep going.
No, I'm gonna take a motion to adjourn one way or the other, Bonnie.
So move.
And if one of you guys won't,
Second.
then I'll make it myself.
You've got a motion in a second, Liz.
All right, all in favor.
Aye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.